Luke represents the best of virtue ethics, while the Jedi before Luke represented in many ways the best and worst of a deontological or principled ethical framework, and the Sith represent the dangers of a consequentialist framework. What do I mean? Let me explain in case you're unfamiliar with this ethical terminology. Virtue ethics emphasizes the development of virtues or moral character as opposed to emphasizing the following of strict rules or principles. That's the deontological or principled way. Virtue ethics would also be opposed to the consequentialist approach, which focuses on the results of an action as the standard for measuring whether an action is right or wrong. It's not that there's an obvious correct or incorrect choice to each of these ethical approaches. It's much more complex than that. But Star Wars shows us the strengths and weaknesses of each, and ultimately calls us to consider a relentless commitment to virtue as the most heroic way to live in the galaxy. The Jedi were supposed to have their principled Jedi code, but by refusing to allow for any emotional or romantic attachment, Anakin felt he had to keep his love for Padme in the dark. This love he felt for Padme and their child drove him to explore the consequentialist path that Palpatine offered.
I know there are things about the Force that they're not telling me.
They don't trust you, Anakin.
They see your future. They know your power will be too strong to control. You must break through the fog of lies the Jedi have created around you.
You can get this good outcome you desire, save the ones you love, but every good omelet takes a few cracked eggs, Annie. The pitfalls of deontological ethics are exposed in the Jedi Order. Anakin can't have romantic attachments, but Ki-Adi-Mundi can because his species is going extinct. So the Council will allow him to have 5 wives? You can see the obvious critique here.
This is outrageous. It's unfair.
Deontological or principled Jedi move into a consequentialist ethical framework when there's a difficult ethical dilemma. Though the Jedi were supposed to use the Force for defense, never for attack, as Master Yoda told Luke on Dagobah,
a Jedi uses the Force for knowledge and defense, never for attack.
In the Clone Wars, the Jedi had essentially become super soldiers for the Republic. Why? Because the ethical quandaries of the Clone Wars era made it difficult for the Jedi to consistently follow their principles. So they simply moved into being consequentialists. Palpatine was right to tell Anakin, though obviously malevolent in his intentions, that the Jedi were narrow and dogmatic. When Mace Windu tries to kill Palpatine, Anakin was right to remind him that this was not part of the principled Jedi way.
Anakin! Help me! Help me! I can't hold on any longer.
I am going to end this once and for all.
You can't. He must stand trial.
He has control of the Senate and the courts. He's too dangerous to be left alive.
I'm too weak. Don't kill me, please.
It's not the Jedi way. He must live.
It's at this moment that Anakin becomes convinced that the Jedi are pragmatists too, but that their hypocrisy and empty rules were ineffective at actually bringing order to the galaxy. In the original trilogy, Luke doesn't feel the tug between principles and pragmatic outcomes like Anakin did. Luke's only real temptations towards the dark side are the temptations towards the excess of the virtue courage. That is, the temptation towards rashness. Even when Yoda warned that fear leads to anger, anger leads to hate, hate leads to suffering, Luke learned that anger could be moderated. This is in keeping with Aristotle's beliefs about anger. Aristotle was one of the philosophical godfathers of virtue ethics and wrote that, quote, "With regard to anger, there is an excess, a deficiency, and a mean." Could it be that wise Master Yoda, even after the failure of the Clone Wars and Order 66, even after his years of exile, still had not learned that the true nature of the Force is balance? If once you start down the dark path, forever will it dominate your destiny. Consume you it will, as it did Obi-Wan's apprentice. But Luke became afraid when Vader threatened to turn Leia to the dark side. And in that moment, he turned to anger, but yet he did not turn to the dark side.
You failed, Your Highness. I am a Jedi, like my father before me.
Luke was able to catch himself at the moment of excess, to not seek revenge, and in that way, to remain ultimately virtuous. Luke Skywalker is a beacon of virtue, and this is what makes him such a compelling hero. In this way, Ahsoka Tano is a hero cut from the same cloth. Both Luke and Ahsoka found balance in the Force. They found the place where Aristotle believed virtue is to be found, the middle ground, or mean, situated between two excesses. Aristotle believed that we grow in virtue by following those who are virtuous and seeing their example and repeating it over and over again in our own lives until it becomes part of our character. To an entire generation, Luke Skywalker was a mythological example of Aristotle's moral exemplar.